All right, we have about 9 minutes left. We have, I'm assuming, a question that might be from another senior pastor. I can't imagine why they'd be asking it, but the question is, what is the biblical way that a senior pastor who is retiring or leaving the ministry should pass the torch? And so we've seen, the famous one was Chuck, and he just kept going until he went home to be with the Lord. I know that you had Don McClure that had, eventually retired, and John Corson. But do you see any biblical instruction or wisdom on that?
Well, I mean, the first is 1 Timothy 3. Paul says, "This is a faithful saying, if a man desires a position of a bishop, he desires a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded," and so on. And there's a whole list of qualifications that are there. And so somebody who's going to be a pastor needs to have a biblical worldview and have a character that matches those qualifications. He needs to be a mature believer in the sense that the Bible talks about, not in the sense that Christians talk about. So a mature believer. As far as passing it on, most of my staff is way younger than me. And so how old are you now? You're getting old.
I'm getting old. I'm 46.
I still think of him as 24. So, yeah. And so I'm always looking at younger guys to put on staff when I put somebody on. And it's not that I'm I don't know. It's not that I don't like older guys. It's just that if I get an older guy than me, he's going to kick off before I do, most likely. And so, I'm always putting young people on staff. I'm always putting young people on stage and that kind of thing. And then I watch everybody. I watch what their gifts are. I watch, I look at what their callings are. If I knew that I was going to be leaving the ministry, whether through death or because I need to step down, I would be praying about that, and I would give a recommendation to my board, and it would most likely be one of the guys from our fellowship. And so I got a bunch of guys. I just had a knee surgery, and I was out for 6 weeks, and the church just kept going. It's like everything was fine. It's just
we didn't tell you
amazing.
anything.
Yeah, they didn't tell me anything. Call me. Do anything. It's like it's amazing. Life can go on without Steve. And so, but I've done that on purpose. And so I got a bunch of guys who, on purpose, I trust them with leadership, and I trust them with teaching. And when a couple years ago I had COVID, and when it looked like it might get me, so I'm in the hospital. And so I had a talk with my assistant pastor, Mitch, and said, "Hey, this is the guy that I want to, if I kick off here, this is the guy you need to look at." And so I made sure that Mitch knew, and we keep that secret. But I already have things in mind, and so I'm expecting that the transition will be much simpler if I have time. If I don't just kick off, if I don't just drop dead, then if I was going to step out, I would start having the guy. I obviously do this with my elders and talk to them about it and that kind of stuff. My staff also, but I would have the guy that was going to replace me start doing more and more of the studies, getting the people used to them. What I wouldn't do is just disappear one day. I'm retired now. Take over. I wouldn't do that because people have to get used to people and that kind of thing. And so make it as easy for the sheep as possible.
Yeah. How do you do that? I mean, you've been here since the 90s, so 30-ish years.
33.
And how do you just let go of that? Because I think about it, I've been doing 8611 for 24 years, and the thought comes in my mind if God calls me away or whatever, and I got to pass it on. I don't know.
So I have people to pass it on to. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Right.
when I look at ministry, I want to replace myself,
Sure.
and so I've got people I could pass it on to right now.
I guess in
Yeah.
the sense of, yeah. I guess, when the time comes, when God tells you, it's easy to do that.
Yeah, and so it's never been mine in the first place. So
Right.
if God wants me here, I'll be staying, and if He wants me out, then
Yeah.
it'll be time to go. And so I've got a good friend who's going through this right now, and so he does a series on Sunday mornings, and then the guy that's going to take over the church, he has him do the next series, and so he can be out of the pulpit for 6 months at a time while the other guy's teaching, and I think that's a good way to bring it across. Get the people used to the guy,
Right.
and that's most likely what I would do. There's not like an outline on how this stuff gets done. So what I would be looking for is a calling, is a guy called to be a head pastor, whether I like him or not. So I want a calling, I want character, and I want a guy who loves my people. He's got to love these people. This is not a job. This is it is a calling, and so those are the things that I'd be looking for, and that I'd make the transition as easy as possible. And so basically it gets down to, you got to be able to step back when God wants you to step back. You can't hold on to things that aren't yours. Otherwise, you get a Saul David type of situation, and that's not what you want. When a lot of times when my guys are teaching, I'll show up every once in a while, but a lot of times when my guys are teaching, I'm not there. They need to be able to do the teaching and minister and do all the stuff that they need to do without the distraction of me being there and people coming up to me and that kind of thing, because what they're supposed to be doing is pastoring. And so, but I will show up every once in a while. If it's out in the amphitheater and stuff like that, I'll do that. But and the reason that I do that isn't just because I want to be away from church. It's because I want to give the guy the full opportunity to be able to do the things that he's supposed to be doing. So you have to have that kind of attitude. I also have people around me who will tell me when I'm losing it, and I will listen to that. I pay attention to that anyway, and so as I get older, I don't want to be fumbling around, trying to figure out which way I'm supposed to go after I get done speaking, and just mumbling my words and things like that. And I have plans on other things that I could do after pastoral ministry too. So, yeah.
You mentioned, and I was trying to look it up real quick. You mentioned the Saul and David thing, and that even filters into when Solomon becomes king, because who was it? Abner. It was one of the guys that was faithful to Saul. They were still, even during the time of Solomon's transition, you still had guys that were loyal to Saul, and so
there was a bunch of politics going on there for sure.
And that happens, and I've seen it in churches.
Yeah.
The minute that the senior pastor moves on, you have a position of power, even not from the office itself, but kind of even from a congregational standpoint, where guys are choosing sides and things like that, and so.
Yeah. So I think that again, this is just from wisdom and stuff that I've seen guys do. Again, I would be having the guy teaching my people, and I would be watching him the whole time that he's doing it, seeing if the power is going to his head and that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't just assume that I was right in doing that. And then people who don't like him would be leaving while I was still there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully.
So that it's not a situation that after the fact, well, Steve's gone, so now I'm gone.
Right.
Yeah. And so hopefully our people wouldn't be like that. So
So does the guy that replaces you get a double portion of your spirit?
Does he want it?
Does he get to take?
What exactly does that
Does he
mean?
get to keep some things and leave the other? All right.
I know what Elisha meant by that.